If you're going to make it in recovery, you need the attitude of courage. And what I have found over the years is that courage is in our culture today an often misunderstood word. People often think that if they have courage, they don't feel any fear. Most people from complex trauma struggle with courage. And I'm going to explain that as well. But healing from complex trauma requires immense courage. It, to me, is one of the foundational building blocks of a healthy recovery. Once a person begins to understand courage and implement courage, it helps them reclaim their power. It creates resilience. It helps them to grow. It is such an important thing. Courage is an essential attitude. So let me define and then explain courage. So the definition of courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing the right thing in the midst of fear. So with courage, I feel fear. That's the emotion. But instead of letting it pull me in the old ways of responding to fear, fight, flight, freeze, I now choose to do what is healthy. That's what courage is. It's doing the right thing, even though fear is desperately wanting me to do the old thing. Eddie Rickenbacker said, courage is doing what you're afraid to do. There can be no courage unless you're scared. Now, let me develop this fear piece, because complex trauma people often get this very confused. Fear is actually designed to be a very good emotion. It is designed to protect us when we face danger. So if we're going into a dangerous situation, we should feel fear. It causes us to seek safety, to protect us. Fear's concern is all about keeping us safe. So fear is designed to be a good thing. So when we see danger or we're in danger, we feel fear. That alerts us something's potentially going to hurt us. That then motivates us to take steps to resolve the danger. And then once that situation is resolved, we either fight, flight, or we go in and fix the problem. Then the fear disappears and we're back to peace. We're back to feeling content. So fear is to be this passing emotion that is resolvable as we take steps to fix the problem, and then the fear is gone. That is what fear's design is. But let's go to complex trauma. The child is in danger. The child feels fear. The child takes steps to resolve the fear, but it doesn't get resolved. It only leads to pain. And so after a while, the child goes, if I feel fear, don't try to fix it, don't try to resolve it. The only solution is to go the other direction, fight, flight, or fear. So the problem with complex trauma is that it keeps a child living in unresolvable fear. There's just no way to the child to resolve it other than fight, flight, or fear. Or freeze. And so fear becomes a controlling emotion as a result of complex trauma. Fear is no longer a good thing. Fear is now a bad thing because it now pulls me to maladaptive ways of coping that eventually, they might keep me safe in the moment, but eventually they hurt me in adult life. They put me into a prison. Now, let me add another piece here. If you look at that child who's facing problems and fear comes in, they're facing danger, fear comes in, what do they need to do to resolve it? They need resources, two types of resources. They need people to support them and help them, and they need tools, skills to be able to handle the situation. So fear is about the lack of resources, not having sufficient support, not having sufficient tools. So courage is when I gain supports, have tools, and now when I face situations that trigger fear, instead of going to fight, flight, freeze, I choose to use my resources. I choose to use the new tools to handle the situation, even though everything in me wants to run away. I choose to rely on safe people when everything in me wants to run away. I choose to courageously deal with the problem instead of avoiding the problem. That was the old solution. That gave temporary relief, but only made things worse in the long run. So I hope you see that the idea behind courage is not that we never feel fear. It's how we respond when we do feel fear. It's doing what we know we should do, even when our heart is full of fear. It is making different choices now in the midst of fear. Fear pulls us to those old maladaptive tools, saying that gives short-term relief. That's the path to take. But now we resist that and say, no, I'm not going to give in to the fear. I'm not going to look for a short-term solution. I'm going to walk into that fear and choose the right tools to resolve this problem. So courage is no longer letting fear run my life. To keep running every time we feel fear eventually makes us a prisoner to fear. It's now my master. I do not know how to escape it. I keep letting it control me. Courage is choosing not to let fear be my master. Now I need to add this. Courage is not something we muster up and say, oh, if I just muster up some courage, then I can overcome the fear. Courage is getting out of my limbic brain to my cortex, regulating my emotions and thinking, what is the healthy solution here? What is the right action here? And then courage is choosing to act in the right way, in a healthy way. It's a conscious decision based on evidence, on new tools, on new truth, not on all the emotions. When your fear gets triggered today, your fear puts you into your limbic brain. And your limbic brain goes back to when that fear was triggered in the past and to the age you were when that fear was triggered in the past. So you might be 50 years today, but when you are triggered by fear, you go back to maybe feeling like a 5-year-old. And you see the world like a 5-year-old. You believe like that 5-year-old. You think like that 5-year-old. It's all based on limbic brain reasoning, on your past experience as a 5-year-old. It's quite distorted. It's full of lies, but it seems so real. And you feel powerless to handle the situation. That goes with it because you couldn't handle it then, and that's the way you feel now. And so what you do when you're triggered today is go, oh, that just made me feel like a 5-year-old, but I'm not a 5-year-old. I have tools today. Those are lies that I believed back then. I know this is the truth. And you respond differently, even though part of you is jumping with fear. So this is a big subject. That's what I want you to see. People coming out of complex trauma have tons of fears. And so recovery is going to trigger all of those fears, and to not give in to them, to make the right choices and keep growing requires courage. So let me itemize something else. When is courage going to be needed? Well, let's say you're an introvert and you realize that in order for you to heal, you got to connect with people. But you're afraid to connect with people because you're so shy because of your introversion. You went to freeze and trying to be invisible. So now if you're going to heal in recovery, you have to force yourself to get out there, put yourself out there to connect, to initiate conversations with people. That's scary. That requires courage. You were always made to feel like a burden, like a pain. Every time you expressed a need, parents made you feel like you were a burden. And so now in recovery, you're going to need to ask for help at times. You're going to need to reach out to others and ask for help. That is scary, but you have to do it if you're going to make it. And then you can't make it in recovery without setting healthy boundaries. And healthy boundaries means saying no to certain people, not allowing certain people in their life, pushing some people back and say, I can't have this closer relationship with you. That could get them angry. That could make them not like you. That could get them to start spreading bad stories about you. That is scary. But you can't make it in recovery unless you do those things. And then you got to try all these new tools, new behaviors. You got to start a routine. You got to respond differently to certain people. You got to get not drawn into drama. You got to get not drawn into gossip. You got to not lash out when your feelings are hurt. You got to learn to regulate your emotions. You got to begin sharing your story authentically. You got to start giving of yourself to help others eventually and volunteering. You got to try learning new skills and new hobbies and using your talents as you begin to learn what they are. Scary, 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 scary. Courage required, courage required. And then some of you, there's going to be a call for an authenticity to the very core of you that at some point with a safe person, you're going to have to share some of your deepest secrets that have kept you sick. And that is going to be super scary. And then you got to deal with the mess from your past that keeps showing up today. So maybe you haven't done your income tax for years. Maybe you haven't taken care of your health for years. Maybe you got legal issues that you've never dealt with. Maybe you got foster care issues with your children that you need to get dealt with. Those are going to be really scary. That could be court. That could be dealing with people in powerful authority positions, the government, etc. Courage required. But there's another one here that I want you to think about. So it's an illustration. This is about your family and peer pressure. So if you see, this is the C chord on a piano. I wish I could just play it for you. It's a beautiful sounding chord. So put dad as the C. So he makes a certain sound. So then you have mom as the E, and then you, the kids, as the G. And so the goal in a complex trauma family is that mom and the kids, they will conform to find the right note that harmonizes with dad. That's how you keep peace. You conform to become what dad wants to create harmony in the home. Okay. You've learned how to do that well. You learned to fawn, you learned to be a chameleon, to wear masks, to adopt roles, all of those things. Now you get into recovery and you realize that the lead person in a group or an organization is a C note, but it's not a healthy person. And your temptation is to go back and be the G note again, to conform, to be what they want, to harmonize with them. But you go, no. If I do that, that's going to make me unhealthy. That's going to prevent me from growing. I will not set up a cord relationship with them to harmonize with them because they are unhealthy. So you are your true note, and it creates a discordant sound. And what do people do? They don't go, oh yeah, that C note, that person's unhealthy. Yeah, they're the problem. They go, hey, you're the problem. You need to get into be that G note again. Then everything will be happy again. And they put pressure on you to conform to the way things have always been so that there's harmony again. But hopefully you have the courage to be able to say, no, that's unhealthy. I am going to be healthy. And if it creates discordant notes with people, then I do not want a relationship with those people. I will keep going till I find a healthy C note. And then create a healthy chord that's got true harmony. That takes a lot of courage because you're going to get family, you're going to get friends that are all going to come and say, you're the problem. And the solution is you need to go back to the old G note and conform to the unhealthy C note. This journey requires tremendous courage. let me just say all of this another way. Courage helps break the old patterns. So your old patterns are based on fear and then avoidance. And you got all kinds of different ways that works itself out. Courage now breaks those patterns. Courage then enables you to say, hey, I have agency to change my life. I don't have to go back to those old patterns. I can do things differently. And that then builds agency and resilience. Courage enables you to start seeing things accurately, to start saying, whoa, I need to deconstruct my entire life to see what is healthy, what is not, where I was lied to, when I was told the truth. I need to separate what is healthy from what is unhealthy. That takes courage, because you're going to have a lot of people that don't like you doing that think that you're betraying the family, that you are being a bad person. That takes a ton of courage. Then for you to begin asking for help and seeking connection, the key pieces in recovery, tons of courage is necessary. And so courage then goes, I got to deal with some painful trauma. And courage enables you to do that. Courage enables true healing and growth to happen. But here's what I want you to understand. Do you realize that, and I say this all the time to clients, every step of growth in recovery, especially in the early days, will trigger fear. So you go, I'm going to set boundaries now with this old friend. That triggers fear. I am going to start going to bed earlier and getting up earlier and going in this new routine. That could trigger fear because you're doing stuff differently. I'm going to say no to spending so much time on social media, and I'm going to start just journaling and spending time with me. That could trigger fear. I am going to stop letting people disrespect me. That could trigger fear. Every step of the journey triggers fear. Every new skill triggers fear. Every bit of growth triggers fear. Fear becomes a constant companion in the early days of recovery. Therefore, courage must be a constant companion.